Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Around the Lens Roundtable discussion. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. This is episode 3 of our ongoing series where we bring together different photojournalists, visual journalists, photographers, and filmmakers to talk all about the various career field-related topics that we find interesting and exciting. Of course, my co-host is Zach Roberts. Hello, Zach.
Hello, how goes it?
It goes great. Glad to have you back. And of course, our two guests on this week are Mark Doyle. Hello, Mark.
Hey, how are you guys?
Great to have you back, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
And Dominic Gwinn, a new face to the Around the Lens scene. Hello, Dominic.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So for our guests who may not be familiar with your all's work, either because they didn't see your previous episode or you're new to the show, just give us like the quick rundown of who you are in your career. We'll start with you, Dominic, since you're our new folk today.
Sure. I am a freelance photojournalist. I am primarily a wire photographer. I'll dabble in some video here and there, but I primarily shoot stills. I'll also do write-ups. When I do write-ups, they tend to just go on a Substack or whomever's paying. And I tend to keep things, especially lately, in a somewhat first-person perspective. These are the things that I saw. Um, the intent is to really demystify the process of the news for the average person. Um, it's been my experience through my travels that just a lot of people, they look at it, the news, and they think it's coming from DC, it's coming from New York. And I can't tell you how many times I've met people in literally the middle of nowhere, and it's the first time they've ever met a reporter, or they've ever met a journalist, and they're really taken aback by, like, oh wow, you're a regular person. Like, yes, I eat, smoke cigarettes, and drink too much coffee too.
Regular person, but yeah.
Yeah.
Regular.
You don't go into this business to be a regular person, or you don't go into this business already a regular person. Yeah, anyway.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, great. We'll look forward to talking to you a little bit later. And then, of course, we've got our good old friend, Mark Doyle. Mark, who are you? What are you doing?
So I've been freelance. I'm in my 11th year as a full-time freelancer, and in this
Yeah.
wacky business, I've been able to grind out a living, and primarily doing events and corporate events lately, and lots of conferences. Just got done doing a conference in New York at the Marriott, and I'm actually leaving Saturday for Denver for another concert until Thursday. So yeah, I've been busy with that type of work, and I've been doing more filmmaking. My background originally, I was an aspiring cinematographer when I was younger, and started working at motion picture labs like Technicolor and a couple of others, and sort of gravitated more towards still photography. Kind of left that area, but I've been getting back into it now with the new technology and sort of all the mirrorless cameras that are out there that shoot really really good video.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I've been doing that, and we'll talk about when we get to that. We'll talk about some of the video stuff I've been doing, but that's primarily how I've been making my living. I've been doing some video stuff, but 90% of my living has been the still photography work, and has been in mostly the event world. Although I do work at a professional photo studio in New York. That's a model portfolio building studio that I work in 10, 12 days a month. And that's just basically shooting. We have an on-site editor, we have on-site makeup artists, and two photographers. And it's basically kind of a 9 to 5er for 10 or 12 days a month. So that kind of pays some of the bills, and then the events and all the other corporate stuff kind of pays the rest of them. So, and those bills keep coming, as you guys know.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about your ventures in filmmaking and freelancing in just a moment. I just want to remind everybody the last time you were part of the show was in 21, where you actually were kind of piloting our sort of depth of field, specific subject focused moderation show. So really appreciated your participation in that. And who knows, maybe I'll revive that show because it was fun.
That was fun. That was fun to get a lot of other photographers involved in that too. It's always good to kind of just mix and mingle and socialize, away from the pits and away from sort of, seeing people at these events.
I agree. I agree. All right. Well, let's get into it then. Obviously you've been doing a bit of filmmaking recently. You talked to me about a pilot that you created. Talk to me a little bit about the genesis of that project and kind of what your kind of pivot towards filmmaking kind of has been like, and what you hope to gain from it in the future, and how it sort of balances out with your freelance career.
So my son has been going to the American Musical and Dramatic Arts Conservancy for acting, and it's a 4-year program, 2 years in New York and 2 years in LA. He's actually in LA right now, finishing his last year. The first couple of years, I hadn't seen anything, and we're paying this enormous amount of money for his education, and I haven't seen any acting. And so the first year I kind of let it go, and the second year I was like, what are you doing? Like, are you? I don't have anything to show anybody, some of the people that I might know in the business. And it was pretty mind boggling that, he was in his almost through his second year, and he had like one little tiny project. And I was like, what is this? What's going on here? So I sat down and I wrote a pilot, a TV pilot, an episode, about 35 pages, that was loosely based on my life. When I was younger, I used to write graffiti and sort of do all those kinds of things, and had a lot of friends that wrote graffiti and stuff like that. So kind of running around Brooklyn and New York and doing that sort of thing in the 80s. So I kind of wrote like a sort of an autobiography of my life growing up in Brooklyn, under the thought that I would get him to play that part, and his best friend, this kid Jeremy Thompson, who's also going to school with him, to play the part of my best friend at the time I was growing up, like around 17, 18, 19 years old, whatever it was. So I wrote the pilot very quickly, and I said, we're going to do this guerrilla style. I had my two Canon R6s, I had a bunch of RF lenses, and bought a couple of lights that I didn't have, and hired a sound guy, and just basically financed it myself. I mean, I wanted to do something for him that he could have a reel. He didn't have a reel. So we shot a couple of scenes with him and Jeremy over one day, basically the thread of the story, because it all takes place, the pilot actually takes place in one day. And so we shot that, and then I figured that's all I was going to do, right? I was just going to have this footage, give it to him, and say, here, go build a reel with this. But he went back to LA, and I decided to just put my head down and say, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to cast the next scene. So I put an ad in backstage. I cast the next scene. We shot that scene, casted another scene, shot that scene, and basically, lo and behold, I'm about 3/4 of the way through this thing now without even realizing it. So I just said, you know what, we got to finish it. So ended up shooting the rest of it, and needed him to come back from LA to actually finish the pilot. So I had shot all these scenes, and I still needed the tail end of the pilot to finish it. So he came back in October, and we scheduled just one or 2 day shoot to basically finish the pilot. So we cut a 42-minute pilot out of this thing, and we've been submitting it to film festivals right now, including Sundance, which we're still waiting to hear back from. And we're hopeful because, I know one of the guys who runs it, and I've been emailing him feverishly saying, could you please take this? You have a pilot section now. And so we're hopeful that it's going to get out there. And of course, my son doesn't really, still hasn't used it. Like, you're in LA, you have a 42-minute finished pilot, and it looks really good. And I was able to bring a buddy of mine in who, his daughter's a singer, and we did a cover of the Four Non Blondes song "What's Up," and that's actually in it. And I had a friend of mine at the studio who's a hip hop artist do an original hip hop song. We did an original score. I had a buddy of mine from Technicolor who I used to work with do the color correction for free. So we pulled a lot of strings to make this thing look amazing. I was able to utilize all my equipment, my DG Ronin gimbal. So there's gimbal shots in it, there's drone shots in it, there's slow motion shots in it. There's a tracking shot in it because I bought this tracking thing, and so it's got a lot of it's got a lot of production value for a small $7,000 project. So
Yeah.
we tried to do as much as we could with what we had, and I think it's a really nice piece, and I'm really proud of it, and I hope my son is. So that's what I've been up to on the video front mainly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So how long did you shoot this over the course of?
So if you, we shot it over, we started it in September last. So it's been over a year. So I think we started it in October and we finished it in October. So well, actually, no, I'm sorry. We started it in October and then we finished it in July. So however many months that was, 7 months, I think, 7 or 8 months. And the only reason why we didn't finish it earlier than that is because he was still in LA and had to wait till June for him to get back. And then, and then we were able to finish it and finish the cut and everything. But we had a 35-minute cut, and then we shot these scenes that I needed to kind of finish it, and then we did a premiere at a theater. We rented a theater in New York, and we did a premiere. We had about 75 people, 80 people come down. It was pretty cool. So I tried to give them the experience. You know what I mean? That's what we're trying to do. So we'll see if it goes anywhere. I mean, we have an outline for the next 8 episodes.
Wow.
I don't have a script, but I have episode outlines, and under the thought that if someone wants to help us do the next 7 or 8 episodes, so we can sit down and write the scripts and have them ready to go. So that's
Yeah,
where
no,
that's at. Yeah.
that's great. That's
And
great.
we
You
have a
said,
we actually have a trailer online on YouTube that people could see. So
yeah,
which
I'll
is
make
pretty
sure to
cool. Yeah.
link that in the show notes. And I did watch the trailer, by the way. So,
Oh, you
kudos
did
to
see it?
you. I did,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
It's very New York.
It's very Brooklyn. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. So kudos to you for getting that accomplished. And I hope it gained some traction for you. But it sounds like, it's a proof of concept
Yeah.
for a series. So obviously, pitch that to Netflix and Amazon and all the other folks and see where it can go. Or, if you made one for episode for 7,000, I'm sure you could probably, do a crowdfunding campaign based off this first one and, garner funds for the rest of the series. I mean, it doesn't sound like it'd be too expensive to do the rest of the series. But some people might want to get paid,
Yeah, I
for
mean,
sure.
we did pay for a location, a rock club, which was 10 pages of the 35 page script. So we did pay a couple $1,000s for the rock club because we had to take it over for the whole day, basically. And then I paid a sound guy. Every time a sound person came out, I paid a sound person.
Yeah, you got to do
Maybe
that.
not, yeah, maybe not like $400 a day for the sound person, but these were very
Hmm.
short days, David. They were not like we got in and out. They were 2, 3, 4 hour days. I mean, we did this thing, and if you added the days up, we did this thing in 5 days and about 4 hours a day. Basically, is what we did. We shot one scene. We basically when I decided to do the two scenes after my son went back to college, we shot two scenes. We shot two scenes in one day. We shot a scene at a softball field, which is right up by in my neighborhood. Basically, everything was in the neighborhood. Basically, we shot with the two boys at a softball field at 9 in the morning, and then the two girls. There was a walk and talk with two girls in Coney Island, and I told them to meet us at 12:30. So we shot the scenes at 9 o'clock, got in the car, drove up, met them at 12 o'clock, and shot their scenes. And then we had two scenes for the pilot already done in one day. So it made sense to keep going at that point. So
Yeah.
that's what we did.
That's good. So you weren't doing the 12-hour days. Is that what
No,
you're
no, they were
saying?
like 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, they were
Oh,
like
wow.
four.
Okay.
And we
Yeah,
had a
that's
comic book store too, which was really cool. We
oh
did have some
nice.
really cool. Yeah, we had a rock club, which is an amazing rock club in Brooklyn. We had a comic book store in Brooklyn. We had Coney Island, the backdrop of Coney Island, the streets of Brooklyn over here, and a little cafe in Brooklyn. So we had some cool locations too. We were able to get some cool stuff to make it, look like a bigger budget than it actually was.
That's great. That's great. No, that's, locations, music, good sound design. That's when it's gonna definitely make your production, seem bigger budget than, it might have been, right? Because,
Yeah.
that's pretty important. I know obviously Zach, you dabbled in documentary filmmaking. Dominic, do you have any experience with filmmaking yourself?
I have some. I was, gosh, 2023 or so. I was in Appalachia. I was working on a documentary about uh, they're effectively a white supremacist group that had moved into a small remote town. A bunch of news outlets were trying to get this story. Um, Nobody in town would talk to anybody, and the primary reason is like, look, you're not from here. We know you're going to leave within the and by the end of the day, at best by the weekend. Like we can wait you out. We live here. I actually kind of grew up in that area. Uh, I don't know, have an old family farm that's up there. So I was like, all right, I guess just gonna move here. And a couple people in town were very unenthused, we'll say, that I just would not go away. I kept everything that I was doing was very low key. Um, and I'm actually kind of hoping to, as with most things in a lot of remote communities, and because of the nature of what was going on, I was able to get a number of people to talk on the record, but a lot of people were afraid to go on film. I'm hoping to go back actually in the next couple of months through the course of this winter and try and wrap everything up. Zach knows very well. I was hoping it to be this very grandiose thing, and it very much did not turn into a very grandiose thing. However, I have so many hours of footage that I was poking around at some of it, and I have some stuff that's there, and there's been a number of developments in that whole story over the last couple of years, and I think I have enough to at least get a full beginning, middle, and end of the story, and just revisit everything, tell the story that I can tell, and just put it out there. Um, it's funny, Mark. You were talking about um, how you were using with your R6s, and then you kind of had your drone, and then you got a gimbal and dollies and such. Like it's very much it just, at least in my experience, at least with everything, whether it's photography, whether it's the overarching visual journalism, um, we all have to work with what we have. And that sometimes is like, okay, I have this rinky-dink camera and like that's it. Sometimes it's I have access to these resources or those resources. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be this big, fantastic production. To be cliche, necessity is the mother of invention, but you work with what you have to produce what you need to get done and get it out there. Um, it's it again, Mark. It's interesting that you were talking about that because it's been kind of a driving thing. I know not just in my life, but in a lot of my friends and colleagues' lives.
The thing about it too, like, I come from that world, like I was saying, I've done little projects here and there. I worked in post-production and sort of been around the outskirts. I did a film magazine in 2000. We did 9 issues of this guerrilla filmmaker magazine and ran film festivals and have been in and out of it in years and trying to catch a break. I mean, and it's a long journey. It really is. It's hard to catch a break. And the thing about this project and the actual project is called Burner. That's a burner is a graffiti piece. That's a beautiful piece, and that's what the story was about. Burner, and to collaborate with my son, even though it's kind of like he wants to be an actor, but he's also 21 years old and he's doing his thing. He's got his girlfriend, this and that. He's interested, but he's not interested. And kids today, even when they're interested, they don't look like they're interested, in my opinion. So, that's you're dealing with that. And so I'm kind of doing this for him, I mean, but at the same token, on the backside of this, I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for him. That was the driving force. That was the motivation. Because when you're doing a project and you're putting your own money into it, and again, I put my own $7,000 into this project, and even though that's not a lot of money, I live a freelance life. I got to pay my rent, pay my child support still, believe it or not, even though my son is 21. I still have a lot of bills to pay, and I'm putting this money in to this project, under the hope that it'll do something for him and also me. You know what I mean? So that was sort of the thing. It's like the way I felt when I started the project, just those scenes with him and his friend Jeremy, and then when we got it done, I felt like I already won. Like I won something. Like I didn't feel like wherever it goes would be a bonus for me because I did it for him. I wanted him to have something to show, and he's quite good in it. So it's a win-win, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of independent filmmakers, things that I admire with independent filmmakers, when they have a story and they're willing to put all of it, on the line to get it done. I could never do that. I saw other filmmakers doing it, but I was like, nah, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I can max my credit cards out. I don't know if I can, take out a second mortgage on my house. I'm not sure about that. But I wasn't motivated enough and I wasn't inspired enough to do that. This Project Burner got me there. I used my son as that motivation to get this thing done. And then using having all the equipment available, we just said, you know what, fuck it, we're just gonna go do it. I ended up buying some lights and buying a couple of little things to kind of, but primarily I had everything already sitting around. So it made sense. I didn't have to hire, my background, like I said, was cinematography and still photography. I didn't have to hire a DP. I knew what I wanted to shoot going in. And I had my best friend who's an editor and a sound guy and his daughter singing a song for the whole thing. So that was it. We just everything started to work. Everything just worked out. It's those serendipitous moments when you're doing something and you're like, this is working out. And one other quick story I just want to point out is one of the actresses, the actress that was playing his mother. I auditioned 3 different women for that part, and there was a black lady, the best friend, and my son, his mother is white in the show. So we got a lot of headshots for the black role, for the female black role, and there was one woman that my friend saw that said, you know what, she could play my son's mother. She was a light skin, but she could play my son's mother, and it just worked out. We cast her. We had to switch a day, so we couldn't get her on the day because what had happened was the venue I was going to use, they would have a parade was going through Third Avenue. There was a parade. The Irish Day Parade was going to go through my set. Like the restaurant was on the avenue of the parade, and I didn't realize it until someone said, you're shooting on this date. I said, yeah, we're shooting outside in front of the Irish Day Parade, the Bay Ridge Irish Day Parade is that same day at 1:00 where we were going to do exactly the time we were going to be doing this. So we had to ask the owners of the venue if we could do it the following Sunday, and that freed her up to come and do that scene because she couldn't shoot that day we were going to shoot where the Irish Parade was coming through. She had something else. So we were able to cast her. It was just like one of those, and she's great in it. It was one of those moments where, things just worked out in a weird way. And that happens a lot in filmmaking, I think.
The Irish ended up saving your film, or saving your.
We just couldn't find, like, the 3 women that we had, we just hated. My friend hated them. They were just like, they're going to blow this up. This is a really important scene. It's a very emotional scene where she's talking to her best friend and, she's dealing with a drug problem and other things that she's doing to make a living. So it was it's a very emotional moment in the script and in the scene. And these other women just weren't getting it. I mean, I had them literally do Zoom auditions and send them to me, and we were comparing everybody. Mm-hmm. So we just couldn't. We wanted this woman, but it worked out because of that parade. We were able to get her. So yeah, that kind of stuff happens sometimes. Pretty cool.
Where'd you post your casting announcement?
We did it in Backstage. So in Backstage, and so we were getting lots and lots of headshots. And what had happened was once we locked in the actors that we wanted, I had them do self tapes of the scenes, and then we had maybe say 5 or 6 people per role that I had to go through their self tapes of the scene. Then we made a selection and we said, okay, we like this person and this person and this person. So once we cast it that way, we did a full run through in Zoom. We did a full rehearsal in Zoom before we went and shot the scene. So we literally we didn't just go and say, okay, we're just gonna go, we're just gonna wing it and go do it. We wanted to make sure that we did a read through and that we gave them notes. So then we went and shot it. That's why it went so smoothly because they knew the part, they knew the role, and it just worked out. Some of the stuff just worked out. We had one kid that auditioned for one part, but he looked like a character for another part. So I had kept that kid on the side, and when we got to the rock club scene, I cast him as the leader of the rock band. He had auditioned for another part, but I loved the way he looked,
Yeah.
and we cast him, and that was it. And I ended up casting the owner of the rock club, who wasn't an actor. He came into my studio. I photographed him at the studio, and he looked rock and roll. He had the beard and he had all the tattoos, and he looked like the owner of the rock club. And I said his name's Alex. I said, Alex, have you ever acted before? He goes, no, but I've been thinking about doing it. And I'm going, you look like the owner of my rock club. Would you do this part? He's like, yeah, man, I love to do it. And he wasn't much of an actor, but we got him through it. We worked it out and we got him through it, but he looked like I envisioned this guy to look. So,
Hmm.
and he just came into the studio one day.
Yeah, no,
So
that's great.
stuff
Happy
like that kind of,
accidents.
yeah, happy accidents happened on this. So thank God.
What's funny is I was shooting a 48 this past weekend, the 48-hour film project. Maybe it was the weekend before. I don't know. They all kind of blur together, but we had somebody had to cover for an actor who basically ghosted us. And so she was not an actor whatsoever, but she filled the role and filled it well. And, sometimes when you put people in those positions, they surprise you.
Yeah, I mean,
Zach,
it was cool. Good, Zach. Zach.
I was going to throw to Zach really quick, just because I know, Zach, you've done a lot of documentary work. Have you done narrative work, or has that mostly just been from film school?
It's been yeah, that was back from film school. It does make me like talking about your son hadn't Mark, your son hadn't like didn't have like a reel already after the first year and everything like that. It's interesting because I went to something the only thing I will ever brag about like school, all my other schooling is terrible, but I got into talked my way into SUNY Purchase Film School up in
Okay.
Westchester County.
Mm,
And they basically the thing that they told us at least back, I mean this is 99, this is 2000, but I was literally shooting on a Bolex with Kodachrome film and editing on a Steenbeck, so I didn't have any special technicolor advisors or sound guys. I had a mini, I actually recorded my final film on a mini disc player like that.
nice.
I'm talking about, I have that tape somewhere. I had my grandmother read this monologue that I wrote about it was the half life, half true, half whatever, about supposedly near my grandmother has way up in upstate New York. My grandmother has had a property. She passed away. And somebody in the 70s, a young woman walked onto the property and shot herself.
Mm,
And so I had my girlfriend at the time play that role and all these things. We were like, so it was going to film in late March. I don't know why I forgot that it still snows and like really a lot snows in upstate New York. I
yeah,
was
quite a
down
bit.
there or whatever. I'm like, oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's spring. It's spring. It's spring. So she's like in a candy striper dress, like 70, like with the canvas shoes, and there's 3.5 feet of snow on the ground, and
Mm,
she has to walk through the forest. And so I she had to walk on deer trails, like the squished down part of the snow.
Oh
And
no.
I had a Bolex shooting manual, obviously manual focus, everything, real, no battery, no nothing. And I'm walking backwards through the snow on that deer
mm.
trail, shooting it. Came out. I don't know how I did it, but like I came out perfectly. And the color, just what ended up actually happening, the happy miracle on that one is that my cinematography teacher, who was fantastic. Otherwise, I was just like, I told him, I'm like, so I want to shoot this on Kodachrome. Like, obviously, it's my favorite film stock. It's, it's what I picture film to be, is that colored everything. And he's like, yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Two things he didn't tell me. Number one, that there's only two places in the world that it gets developed in 2000, the film's 16 millimeter film stock. One is in Denver, Colorado, and one's in Switzerland.
Right,
And so
nice.
that added like 2 weeks and $400 to my shoot because it was something like $50 a reel, $50 for 2 minutes to develop at that point or something like that, which is 2000. Think about how expensive that came out. But the other one was that you had to shoot, I think it was 2 stops up or something.
Hmm.
And I didn't know that. But what happened was, so I shot what, I had my light meter, I shot exactly what it was. But what saved my life was that there was so much snow on the ground that basically everything was bounced and like I wasn't really lighting. And so it came out absolutely perfectly. Like the most gorgeous Kodachrome. Obviously mostly everything was white and very stark because it was still early, very early spring. But like the colors on her dress popped, the colors, like all the right colors just popped. And it was just like she had like my girlfriend at the time had like red hair, so that popped as well. And so like actually turned out like completely fine. But anyway, long story short, was what amazed me is that NYU students at the time at least at the time in the film school, they didn't get a camera handed to them basically until their sophomore year.
Yeah,
And
it's
we,
crazy.
within 2 weeks of being at SUNY Purchase, we had Bolexes in our hands. We were learning how to use them. We shot within 2 weeks. I still have my reels somewhere. I got to get them printed at some point. We did our first like test shoots and lighting and everything like that. Obviously on Tri-X or black and white film, but yeah, it always amazes me when I hear that there's so much. There's definitely should be history. We had a great history of film class and all this stuff and kind of academic side. But it was just like the idea that like I was just like every day I thank God that I went to that film school and never mind the amount of student loan debt, but that I went to
Yeah,
NYU because I'm just like ended up leaving after a year and I just think about the fact that I'm like I just would have never probably shot anything,
yeah, yeah.
spent
You probably would.
$60,000.
You probably wouldn't have.
Yeah,
The other thing we did too, in addition to the pilot, was the two songs that we did, the "What's Up" remake that
yeah,
my best friend's daughter did,
yeah.
and recorded it and mixed it and did all that. And my friend at the studio who did the original hip hop song, we have two music videos to
Yes.
accompany those two songs in addition to the pilot. So we're actually pushing music out of this thing
Yeah.
because music's a very big component in the pilot itself. Not just those two songs, but all of our friends that have had bands over the years, and we're kind of mixing their music into this thing and sort of integrating that. So it's got a pretty interesting music component to it as well. So it's pretty dynamic for a low budget. Yeah, we tried to do that.
Yeah, no, that's great, and look forward to seeing the final product. As you said that it's being currently looked at for Con or not Con, South by
Sun,
Southwest,
Sundance and a couple
Sundance.
other festivals for next year. So we'll see what
Like you've
happens.
submitted it to those festivals and you're waiting for feedback or to
Submitted
hear
it to
back.
Sundance. Yeah, submitted it to the Sundance Film Festival. I've been there 10 times when I was in post production, so I know the
Wow.
area pretty well. And when I was in the business, and and I know the guy who runs it. He used to run a publication called IndieWire, and now he runs the Sundance Film Festival. And when I was doing Guerrilla Filmmaker, we knew each other because we were competitors, but it was a friendly thing.
Yeah.
And years later, he ended up running the Sundance Film Festival. So I emailed him. I'm like, hey, could you take a look at this thing? And you don't have to put it in, but I'd like you to take a look at it. I just didn't want it to fall, with a bunch of kids that are kind of looking. They don't know what they're looking at. You know what I mean? I wanted him to take a look at it and turn it down. I was okay.
Yeah.
I was okay with that. I'm okay with
Right.
that, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with a 22-year-old looking at it going, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't, I don't know what graffiti is. I've never seen it. And that sort of thing. So we'll see. I mean, their deadline, they're supposed to let people know by December 5th, although it's the 25th right now. So I'm a little
Hmm.
nervous because we haven't heard anything, but who knows? It could change the
Yeah.
whole dynamic of the show. I mean, it could change
Yeah.
the whole thing. Getting into a film festival like Sundance could change the whole entire project because having been there 10 years and having schmoozed and networked and kind of followed different filmmakers throughout their careers, seeing them at Sundance over the years, just being there, I kind of know how to maneuver some of that stuff. So getting there is the challenge, but I could definitely maneuver it once it's there. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, if you get into Sundance, that's life changing. You're now then going to be making a TV series because it's extremely difficult to get into Sundance, and to get into Sundance with a 42-minute short film uh, would, is unheard of. Especially, did you have any named actors in this?
No,
Any?
the interesting thing about the Sundance Film Festival the last couple of years is they actually added a pilots category. They never had a
Oh,
pilots category.
oh,
They have a shorts, features, world cinema, etc.,
oh.
narrative, but they never had a pilot category, and now they do. So this is specifically, sent to them under that, into that category. So he knows it. He knows it's not a short film. It's not a
Hmm.
feature film. It would fit right into that category that they just added the last couple of years. So we'll
Okay.
see how many pilot submissions they got. Who knows?
Hey, I wish you all the best, and if you get accepted, please let us know. All right, great. Well, I'm going to shift gears here for a little bit and focus a little bit more on our a new guest, Dominic, because I really want to talk about his experience with lawsuits. Now, obviously, lawsuits are a thing that some of us do encounter. I hope none of you ever have to deal with one. I haven't, thankfully, been, but I've been close. So let me ask you, Dominic. You were involved in a pretty, I think, interesting lawsuit with the city of Chicago? What was the city you were suing?
Yeah, the city of Chicago.
Talk to us about that.
So,
What you can say, I
uh,
should say.
so the case is pretty much almost over and done with. We're still going through the last little bits of the legal process. But rewind for a bit. So this all started back in 2020. Um, uh, those of us that were able to go out, uh, press wise, journalist wise, photographer wise, there was not a, we were not missing, there was a hell of a lot of stuff to cover. As riots picked up in cities like Minneapolis and New York and in DC and Chicago specifically where I was, um, things kind of just stayed onto a really consistent protest flow. Anyway, so a lot of, as Zach, I know you can attest to, a lot of major media outlets, whether they newspapers, whether they be broadcast outlets, they won't cover every protest, if they cover protests at all. Um, they tend to only go when things are getting spicy, and then they show up after the fact. Um, and it generally falls on people like freelancers like ourselves to show up to a lot of these things so it gets some coverage. Um, and this is one of those events. It was kind of a small thing, um, that was being carried out by a group of indigenous people, and the easiest way to describe what ended up happening is that there was no planned march. The group starts marching. They veer off of the main roadway into a series of trees that in a little park area where everyone suddenly started getting going black bloc tactics, sweatpants, ski masks, shirts, black gloves. And then they made a beeline for the Columbus statue in downtown Chicago and tried to pull the statue down. There was a handful of white shirt police officers that were there. The police officers got attacked. Um, and I was there doing my job, uh, shooting. There was no press at this because the group didn't want any press there. So what press that had initially showed up for the initial rally, they bugged out because, well, this group is not letting anybody take pictures of anything. They're not letting anybody shoot video. The only thing you're getting is distance and wide. So they just leave because, well, they're just kind of standing there. They're not really doing anything, and you can't really tell what's going on in this circle in between. So there's no press. except me. And a number of activists and other folks, they recognized who I was. So it's not like people were cool with me, but they knew that like who I was. They knew that I'm there taking pictures. They know I'm not on their side any more than I'm on the police or the city side. Anyway, the police get attacked at this thing. I'm shooting video, uploading it to Twitter as fast as I can, and I believe the caption that I wrote for my tweet was just "Holy fuck," because you just see the cops getting pelted. The footage goes viral overnight. Don't actually recommend any of that, by the way. Going viral sucks. Um, it's it blows. It's fun for like a half second, and then you look at your mentions and you're like, I'm just turning my phone off at this point. Screw this. Um, uh, that happens on a Friday. Fast forward to Monday, the police um hold a press conference to describe what had happened that Friday night. Now, uh, throughout the weekend, I was fielding offers from a couple of different media outlets. Your alphabets, we'll call them, if you catch my drift. Um, the In local and national, as well as a handful of international outlets. Nobody wanted to pay my fee because they're like, we can't just use it. It's on Twitter. It's like, no, you have to pay the fee for it. That's how this works. This is a business. Like, you want it, you buy it. Otherwise, take a hike. Um, the police hold their press conference Monday morning and they show a compilation video of security camera footage. And at the very, very end of their like a 10-minute video that the police show is my full video tacked onto the police's video because the police department put it out there. Well, now it's considered public record because the state is a state entity is putting this out, so it's fair game. So pretty much everyone has the right to go and use it. Uh, Not only that, and in the course of finding this case out, I found out that they emailed it to over 400 different media outlets and people, independent journalists, freelancers, friends of mine, people that I was like I'm out in the street with all the time, and like, uh, anyway, so I'm like, screw that. Uh, you guys just you the thing that the police did not say in their press conference was that after they got chased out of this park, after these people came and started throwing shit at the cops came back and it's CPD. And Mark, I think you can attest to this. Big city police forces, they don't fuck around. When one of them gets attacked, they come en masse and they beat the shit out of everybody. And that's exactly what CP did in this instance. They came in and they beat the shit out of everybody that was there. They pepper sprayed the whole lot of you. Random people that just happened to be walking by got snatched up and just locked away for 12 hours or so. Like it was just a shit show. Um, and so please casually leave that out there. I'm pissed off because they've now stolen my stuff. So I sue the city of Chicago. 5 years later, it finally goes to court. I I win on a summary judgment for the initial taking of my footage for copyright infringement. Um, and then I won on three DMCA counts, basically boiling down to the police took it, they didn't ask. They never made any attempt to ask, and they stripped out my copyright management information. In this instance, that was literally my username, my handle on Twitter, which is my name, Dominic Gwinn. Um, And the judge ruled in my favor, saying that, well, his name is there. All you had to do was ask. Um, when it got to trial for damages, because I was like, no, you, judge is saying you stole it. I've been saying y'all stole it the whole time. Like, we're gonna go to court. I'm gonna go back to Chicago. I'm gonna make a jury of my peers. sit and listen to what you all did. Um, and they asked me, you know, what were you doing over the course of that weekend? I was like, I got my ass kicked by the city of Chicago and got pepper sprayed. It's not fun. I kind of spent I spent the rest of the weekend at home. They're like, well, how could they have found you? I'm like, it's the Chicago Police Department. Like, you know where I live. Like, you come knock on my door. It's not that hard to find me. Like, I'm in the yellow pages. We still have those. You
Mm-hmm.
can Google me and find me. I get alerts all the time telling me like, my public information has been found. Like, yeah, it's my address, dude. Um, so the jury ruled in my favor. Um, and it's really wild because this aside from it just being a slog that I like, I honestly hope that nobody else has to go through. Copyright infringement things they don't usually go to court. You usually settle out of court because it's not worth the hassle. It is an incredibly long process, and it's just easier to Zach, and I know you could might be able to speak to this a little bit better than I have because you've done more settlements than I have. It's usually easier to just settle for a couple grand and just be done with it.
Yeah. I mean, almost always. I mean, I've only sued corporations, I mean, or news agencies, nonprofits, and corporations. But I mean, like it, even the most egregious ones that like really just try to so hard to do the whole fair use doctrine or whatever. Like, obviously, my lawyers are infamous, so I highly recommend them. But Sanders Law Firm. But
Mm-hmm.
they, I have never, I've done probably six or seven. And obviously, it's like lawyers, do their due diligence of making sure, go through the whole process, make sure that they're not going to bring this out, they bring a case until they're kind of assured that they can win. And with I have never even gotten anywhere near the fact that they'll be like, okay, we'll bring it to court, because they know that they're going to lose. I mean, they're almost certainly going to lose because I mean, obviously, once my law me and my team has brought a case to that point, it's they know that they stole it. They know whatever. You'd have to like get a miracle, and then people want to, people can see that you know the New York Times has actually never strictly stolen my work. I'll say they've stolen my journalism before, but like just by not linking to things. They're kind of famous for that. But like photo wise, be like they're not. It's like they're the New York Times knows what they're doing and whatever or the whatever publication, and like there's going to be a jury that's going to be very happy to give this billion-dollar corporation a couple bucks, throw a couple bucks towards this broke journalist or whoever. As much as they may like or dislike journalists, they dislike usually large news corporations more. So you got to be basically a big city police force, knowing that you don't have to pay the bill to kind of get to that point. I mean, that's yeah, I mean, that's like kind of the only thing you'd ever hear. Like I'm suing the city. I'm suing the city of Rochester right now, but for shooting me with pepper pellets and attacking the press as part of a class action lawsuit. But it's just like it's shocking. Basically, I think that's basically because it's a violence thing. They don't want to be seen as oh, we weren't violent when we brought out German shepherds to attack protesters and use sound cannons and shot journalists with pepper pellets because they were marching in the streets past 10 p.m. But but yeah,
Yeah,
that much they don't. But copyright lawsuit that I mean, obviously I won't talk about too much, but it's just like you've been telling me kind of as along a little bit about it. I'm still can't believe that they went this far because like you weren't anyway, you weren't asking for some like outrageous fee early on. I mean, it wasn't like you used my thing. I want the 100 because you actually the lawsuit form for the most part. I think it still says that it's basically like the initial lawsuit form that you send in as a kind of a from a lawyer to the news agency or whoever stole it is basically asking for the max amount, which is like $150,000. And so like some small agencies are like, what the, like lose their mind because like that's our entire corporate, that's our entire budget for the year or something like that, or whatever, and so they lose their mind over it. But usually like I settled, half of my cases were under $5,000, which is way more than they could have paid me $250 for the photo use. Or sometimes back, especially back
That's what
earlier,
happens.
some of the publications, if they had just asked me, like, it was just like they'd been like, okay, $50, just give me, well, you're a small thing or whatever. Mind you, my lawyers won't go after any. I had to convince my lawyers that um, a online I have NDAs with things, so an online news agency that is somewhat left leaning, somewhat very anti-union, but somewhat left. They also don't believe in the Armenian genocide, but that might give it away. They I had to convince them that they were actually profitable organization. Be like, no, they have lots of money. And they're like, really, they have money? And I'm like, yeah, I promise you, they have money. That YouTube gave them their own studio a while back. Yeah, but
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, it comes down to like really like it sounds I'm blanking on the term, but it sounds like we're putting ourselves on a pedestal um when we talk about these things, be it copyright suits. And I've had people say like, oh, it's kind of greedy, and it's like, well, no, because this was the police department, this was the city. Like, not only were they out there beating the crap out of people on the streets, getting the full support of the executive branch that was going out regularly encouraging this kind of behavior from public officials, like people that are paid through tax dollars. Like, no, go ahead, like violate the First Amendment, go ahead, beat the crap out of people for exercising their First Amendment rights, beat up journalists, like, not a problem there. And courts have resoundingly ruled in our favor on a number of instances. And with this, like, I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. For me, I was just like, dude, no, you stole from me. And I say this as someone that I bounced in bars, I've bartended, I've worked my fair share of good and bad retail jobs. Like, nah, dude, you came in, you took shit that didn't belong to you. You need to fucking pay for it. And like, the bill has now gone up because you could have paid for it, the initial asking price at the time of sale. And instead, you blew right past that and you walked out the fucking door with it. Like, no, like, that's not how this works. Um,
I think
so
there's
you,
like an
so
air of
what?
there's like an air of arrogance to the police department at times. You know what I mean? Thinking that they can just do stuff like that and and get away with it. I think things are moving so fast. They figure, yeah, this guy's not going to break our balls about it. He's just some kid who's trying to make a living, and he won't do anything. I think they
yeah,
really think a lot. They really think that you weren't. They probably thought you weren't going to do anything. Chances
I mean,
are,
yeah. And again, they're early on, they're like, I know I was concerned, like, does this come under qualified immunity? Like, the fact that, well, the police did it in the service of, cops doing cop stuff, that, the job, their business. Um, and it didn't, because it was actually the city of Chicago that I was suing, not the Chicago Police Department, because the Chicago Police Department falls under the city of Chicago.
right?
Um,
So you have to sue the city basically.
exactly. And I could not begin to tell you uh, how all of that works. That is not my job. I am not a lawyer. I take pictures of stuff and then I write about it sometimes. Um, That's what I like doing. Apparently, I'm really good at what I do, according to friends, colleagues, and wh whomever else.
Well, and
But like,
the city of Chicago, city of
yeah,
Chicago's police
yeah.
department seems to think you're right. I think
Um,
one of the things is that they have the police departments have such a friendly and cordial relationship with like local news agencies so much, like the local, ABC, NBC, Fox News, and that sort of thing, that,
yeah,
because I mean, like the big Angie cameras or whatever, the guys, they rely on police reports and knowing where and getting access, and it's 100% just, like we have friends that like used to work the police beat in Chicago, and like, yeah, you got to be really friendly. You can never say anything bad to them, because then guess what? That yellow line's going at the end of the block, that, where you can shoot from and where you can get close to. So I wouldn't be surprised if the media team at the Chicago Police Department was just like, well, we use ABC News as, clips when we have to, and they don't say anything, so we can just grab this. It's on Twitter, so that's also that's always a big problem too, is that like the number of places. I remember the first place I had something really stolen from me was Gawker stole, was infamous for stealing people's photographers' work. But they were just like, oh, well, it was on Twitter, so I don't know why. And the funny thing, his funny thing is that I had like three more. Once it got on Gawker, so many other places end up stealing it because they're like, well, it was on Gawker, so we just took it. So
yeah.
yeah, no, that's
This
Well,
is
it's
this is the reason why I'm not a photojournalist.
yeah, yeah.
That's why
it's great fun, man. Like,
yeah.
you join us.
It's got
Yeah,
low
I would
pay
love
and
to.
long
I
hours,
always
and
just go shoot some protests in New York, and you know how crazy that could be.
yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
they look thrilling and exciting because there's so much activity and so much to get, and you never know when you're going to find that little diamond shot that that you could sell. But
Yeah.
it seems like, I mean, all of photography is oversaturated, but that seems to be one of the ones that's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
it does. But it's funny, especially that you mentioned it, Zach. There is an expectation, and in a sense of camaraderie that does develop, at least in my personal experience, between a lot of people that are operating ENGs, like broadcast, cameras, and city officials, police departments, but also like I grew up in DC, so I'm real like going down to Capitol Hill for me. It was like it was like Friday. Like, whoa, well, I literally used to go drinking across the street from the Heritage Foundation. A buddy of mine would give me a pint glass full of bourbon and send me loose out into the crowd if he wanted to get the bar closed early. And like, I can't tell you how many times, I'd run into, a public official and out like, oh, like you are a journalist. Like, oh, I'm a freelance journalist. I'm, independent. Like, well, you're wearing this retail shirt. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but it was a slightly intimidating shirt. I will leave it at that. Um, uh, had trench knives and skulls on it. Um, and you know, there would just be this expectation that you're going to have a sense of not just cordiality with them. That's to be expected. You're dealing with public officials. There is a sort of, you know, treat people with respect kind of a deal that designates that office. But there also comes a point where, like, again, in my experience, you see people kind of bending over backwards. I've seen, print journalists, video journalists, photojournalists give more deference to public officials, be they on the very low end of the spectrum or the very high end of the spectrum. And they're like, oh, I know it's not right, but I'm going to lose my access for it. And it's like, dude, like fair, especially coming from photography. Like if we can't get into the room, we don't have a photo, we can't make our rent, we're not
Yeah.
going to eat.
Yeah.
Access is key, but there does come a point where you have to draw that line and know, like, do you have ethics or do you not have ethics? And that's a thing that I think we all have to come to that conclusion on ourselves, especially within our line of work. Um, it's it's not the easiest thing. And I, Dave, you were a photographer in the military, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, you would have. I'm guessing you were shooting with DVids. But my main question is like there was always things that like you were told to shoot, and then there were also things that like, man, this would make a great picture, but if I take this picture, my CO is probably going to kick my ass.
Well, we were never restricted in terms of what we could shoot because ultimately there's we're not free to just publish whatever we want. There's always a editor, so to speak, and that's either an NCOIC or it's a public affairs officer or someone in the chain who has to approve the release of that image. And so, there's never, in fact, we were explicitly told to shoot everything because you have to document, you have to do your due
Yeah.
diligence, and you have to capture things for historical purposes, as well as there's a lot of things that combat photographers, photojournalists, filmmakers within the military document that are solely for internal purposes only, whether that be for briefings or intelligence or logistics or a million other things.
Mm.
So we're never told we can't shoot anything. It's just what gets published is going to be at the behest of the editor. And as a public affairs officer myself, I did not let things get published for various reasons. And so, that's always going to be that layer of control and approval authority over anything that's produced by our military members.
That makes sense. I could see that. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't want you to miss anything in case. I mean, so Dave, would they the stuff that wouldn't see the light of day? I mean, they archive that. They could always go back to that for some sort of reason, right? If they need to go back to it. I mean, it never sees the light of day, but it stays internal. So if there's an issue or there's something they're looking to do or change or whatever, they can go back to them.
Right. I mean, there's tons of reasons that, not every, again, the average photographer thinks like, a couple hundred to a couple thousand. I'm an overshooter myself. So you send me over to shoot an event, I'm shooting like 1,000+ photos of that. At most you're going to see maybe 10 get published, if that.
Right, right,
And
Yeah.
right.
so a lot of it's just filler material, or it's not good enough quality to make it, or it's too much stuff in general. So, a lot of it's not published, not for, devious reasons, but because it's just not worthy of being. All of us shoot more than we ever get published, and I would say the only times are things that you know have don't serve a purpose, or maybe there is something that's classified in the photos. Like for instance, I worked on a base, and on the flight line there were aircraft that we could not have in photographs, and so if we took a photograph on the flight line and one of these aircraft were in the background, that photo never saw the light of day. Or if the photo had to get out, it was cropped or blurred. So there are a number of different ways we could work around that depending on the nature of the photograph. But there's reasons for that. And I've worked also with, I can't talk about the nature of the subject matter, but I've worked with imagery that was classified and in a secured location that only specific people with specific clearances could see due to the nature and sensitivity of that. But even imagery that's classified either secret or top secret, all of that has an expiration date. So the reason you see stuff, on the History Channel that's like from wars and stuff is because it's now become public domain and it's accessible. So the stuff that we shot in, the second OIF and OI, whatnot, that'll see the light of day eventually. And then we'll have, documentaries and stuff come out about, the stuff you didn't see, right? So that's just the nature of the business.
So what you're telling me is somewhere out there, there are really sick pictures of the aliens.
Maybe I didn't see them.
I did not see them. I did not work in Roswell.
Well, I
And
would say if there were, they would have been out by now.
yeah.
If they existed.
I do find
But
that
I'm convinced
fascinating.
they're there. They're somewhere. I'm convinced. I'm not
could
convinced.
be, could be. I
Something
mean,
when you're following something since you're a kid, and it just keeps getting more real as time goes on,
Yeah, I
or at
mean the
least it
universe
feels.
can't be as big as it is, and there can't be other life out there. I mean, there's too much out there. But so the case has been settled, and maybe it was mentioned earlier, but I just want to make sure it was for $150,000. Was that the suit? Can you say that, or what it's was? Is that
Um, yeah, I can say that. So the jury awarded me in total almost $150,000. Um, and that's for the copyright infringement and then as well as the multiple DMCA violations. Um, we're still everything is still kind of finishing its last legs through court. Fingers crossed. Um, and I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I just want it to be done with. Um, it it's that's going to pay off what's left of my student loans, which I'm so eager to get rid of. I can't begin to tell you. It's going to help me get equipment. It's going to help me get an apartment. It, it, it it's really difficult to like describe. Like I literally started like I had to hold myself back like my in court when the jury read the verdict on it because like I legitimately started crying. And my lawyer had to come and like grab me by the shoulders like, are you okay, man? I'm like, dude, like you don't know what this means. Like I did this like this changes my life. Not not in it being like it's a hell of a lot of money, but at the same time, it's not a hell of a lot of money. But it like again, like it allows me to pay off my debts, my student loan debts. It allows me to finally buy some new gear that I've been desperately needing for far too long, and it allows me to get an apartment. Like I've been living in my car for the better part of like 3, 4 years now. Um, and it it's one thing to have to like go up and like be in federal court on the stand and telling people once again like in court going over a traumatic experience, reliving your PTSD and trying to keep yourself together while like not only you're reliving your PTSD, but because I shot video of the moment that I ended up getting PTSD from, like I'm literally reliving it second by second. I can scroll through it millisecond by millisecond, and then I have to litigate that all over again. Um, and that's just like that's out there. That's part of public record. But being able to like try and put some of that just away, like taking all my shit and finally putting it into a box and then putting that into the storage unit of life and not have to deal with it because I've sorted through all that crap. Like I no longer have to deal with it. It sets a legal precedent for all journalists in the state of Illinois specifically. But it sets a legal precedent going forward that state entities cannot steal footage from journalists, as far as I've been told. Not legal advice. Um, but like it still sets the legal precedent that like the state cannot take your work and then slap their name on it, and they have to give you credit for things. And that, I mean, that was one of the other reasons why I did it. You know, you you have a sense that like no this was my work like this like I created this like you have to give me credit for this you have to pay me for it too but like at the same time I still remember like when all this was going down there was a number of people that were like are you out of your friggin' mind like you're gonna sue the city of Chicago, you know the police are gonna come after you. It was like yeah probably So I did the dumbest thing possible after that, which was take a job in southern Mississippi with a Gannett paper. Um, Zach, you get the joke. Anyone that's ever worked for a Gannett paper will get that joke. If you lived in southern Mississippi, you'll understand why it's a joke. Well, I wouldn't change any of it though. Did some great reporting out there. I saved some lives. It was great. But like no, I left Chicago because I got to a point where like I legitimately didn't feel safe. Like was it all in my head? It's entirely possible, but you don't just sue like a major entity like that and not think that nothing is going to happen to you. It is mentally taxing. Like it really just it fries your senses to the point where like you just want all those things to be over with. And like had none of that happened, like I wouldn't be in a position where I am in my career today. Not just because I'm a stubborn old punk that refuses to listen to authority. I hate to be cliche about it, but I mean, it's it's allowed me to, like we were talking about earlier, like work with the resources that I have to try and churn out the work that I can and get paid whatever I can scrape together to try and make a living, whether that's gas to get to the next gig or whether that's to scrape together a $5 meal from Walmart that is at least modestly nutritious. Like it's at least something that not only gets me again to the next gig, but like I can also produce my work. I can look at it and be like, no, that like I did that. Like I, you know, I was there. Like I can attest to those things. And again, like sometimes your work does help change the world. Sometimes you do save lives just with pictures, with photos, and you still have to crawl through hell for it though.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Well, I'm sorry you had to go through all that, but at least it's hopefully paying off for you in that respect. But sucks you have to go through all that. Is the actual video clip or the content still online, or has it been taken offline?
Oh no,
When
it's
those,
online.
yeah.
It's still on my Twitter page. Like I never deleted my Twitter page.
Hmm.
It's there. I don't use it anymore. I haven't used it in a couple of years now. But like it's there. It's also because of the case, like it's a matter of public record. So like you can pull up the court case and it's there as a matter as evidence.
Hmm.
Um, but it was footage that like it went viral, like everybody saw it. And then once the police put it out there, like it started getting featured in campaign ads.
Mm.
It was in a documentary. Um, like there's just really nothing that I can do at that point. Well, like once the state puts it out there, like it becomes fair use. Um, and it like as as an as a freelancer, like we're I hate to be cliche again and steal a quote from Jay-Z, but like I'm not just a businessman, I am a businessman. Like like my
Yeah.
I get by through this. Like it might not be a lot of money to some other people, but like whatever I can make today is money that I can use to get the next gig done tomorrow. And that's kind of the way I've been looking at my life and my career
Hmm.
really ever since. Um,
It adds up, Dominic. I gotta say, it does add
oh
up.
yeah.
That's what
I
Hmm.
it
mean,
is.
even if it's a residual check for just a crappy photo of, a couple of cents here, and but that being the only photo that exists of those instances of like that person or that instance, like if you're the only one with that photo, like and it might only be selling for a couple of cents, like people still have to pay that money to get that photo. And like you said, Mark, like that does add up. Um,
Hmm.
It was funny because I was shooting a concert. I was just doing a concert just for myself. I was called the Four Knots concert. It was on the Pier 17. It was right on the side. The Pier 17 kind of goes out, overlooks the Brooklyn Bridge. You could see the Brooklyn Bridge and sort of jettisons out. And right next to that is a pretty open space where would set up a stage and they would do like a full day of concerts, like, indie rock, stuff like that. So I'm there. I get a photo pass. I was going to park them somewhere at some point, but I wasn't sure whether it was going to be Getty or somebody. So I'm shooting the concert and I'm there most of the day. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a fire breaks out on the fucking pier, like right next to where I was shooting. And the fire boats are coming in, and it's like a raging fire on Pier 17, like really damaging. And they're trying to put this fire out. So I run over there and I'm just taking a whole bunch of pictures just because I knew I was the only one that was actually getting photos of this thing. And I literally stopped shooting the concert, fucking jumped on the train, went home, called the New York Post and said, "Hey, I got these photos of this fire that just broke out, on Pier 17." They're like, "If you could send them, send them." I sent them. They said, "We'll give you $400 for one of the images. Take it." It went on. It went on. It ended up just online. It wasn't even in the print edition because it was during the day. So they literally wanted to get the story out online. And they paid me $400 for the photo. I'm like, all right, at least I made money that day. I wasn't making money from the concert,
Yeah.
but I had the presence of mind to do it. So there is definitely money to be made on the hustle in some of the photojournalism stuff. But
Oh yeah.
it's a tough it's a tough racket.
I was shooting a gig in Miami once, for a friend of mine because I happened to be in Florida. I wasn't far from where the event was happening. And she gives me a call like, "Hey, if you want to make $200," and I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I go, I shoot some photos. The photos do really well. Like starting that night, my friend pays me for the video, like just crappy cell phone video of the event. Like I just need something to sell network. I was like, "Hey, great." And I'm sitting around thinking to myself, I'm like, well, I'm in Miami. What can I do? I can get some pretty banging Cuban food or probably the best taco I might have ever had in my life. It sounds ridiculous, but like that's what was going through my head at like 10:30 at night trying to file in a sketchy park where the cops are sitting there looking at me. "Why are you on your laptop in this really shitty area?" I'm like, "Dude, like I will answer all your fucking questions as soon as this upload finishes in 10 minutes. Like just like get the hell out of my face right now." Um and uh yeah, the ch the check comes in, the PayPal, whatever it was, and I'm like, "Well, shit, like I got $200. I didn't think I was gonna have this week." And like, what am I doing? I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm going to Key West. I'm gonna go find me a little RV campsite, and I'm gonna hang out with all the other like old Florida people and just do nothing for like the whole weekend in Key West because I don't know the next time in my life I'm ever gonna be here. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the thing. You got to just hustle. And I was talking to David earlier today. We were talking about the business aspect and of the freelance world of photography. And a lot of these events and shows that I go to are all, discussions about how to pose somebody and how to light somebody and everything. And they really don't get into the nuts and bolts of like, how do I make a living at this? I've never like have seen a panel like at B&H's build I went to this past year, and everything was, this is how you pose, these are the lights, this is that. I'm like, how the fuck do you make a like give me some information that I can use because I hustle and I make a living at it. But it'd be nice to hear something that I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And there really isn't like a lot of information on, like you're saying, how to turn a buck on something. Like, for instance, I'm doing a documentary actually on 100-year anniversary of a yacht club up in New York, and I have to deliver this final, I think it's a 15-minute piece that we're going to start shooting in January. Do a bunch of interviews, integrate some of their still photography and some old video clips, and do like kind of like the little mini history of this 100-year-old Yacht Club that's having their gala, their 100th year gala in June. So basically, I have from January to June, or just before June, to finish this thing. So how I was when I was discussing the with the client how how much I was going to charge them to do this, I was kind of really thinking it out because the thing about these kinds of projects is you don't want to leave money on the table, especially when when you have a company that has money to spend, but you don't want to blow them away either. So you want to try to find that sweet spot. So I was able to find the sweet spot. But what I told them was, I said, look, it's going to be X amount of dollars. We're going to deliver a 15-minute documentary. That's kind of the runtime that they were looking at. And I said, but if it goes over 15 minutes, if it's 16, 17, 18 minutes, I'm going to charge you $1,000 per final minute. So if it goes to 22 minutes, I'm going to make another $7,000 out of this thing, or $8,000 for not doing anything, just for my editor delivering a 22-minute cut of this and them approving it, because I'm going to try to deliver a 15-minute cut. But if they're like, well, you left so-and-so out of this, or this one's not talking long enough, or that's not my fault. I got the whole interview, an hour interview, but if I'm interviewing 17 people to try and get 17 people in a 15-minute documentary, chances are my editor is that first cut's going to be 22, 23 minutes. It's going to be up to them to tell me how to get this thing to 15 minutes. You know what I mean? And they may say, we love it at 22 minutes. And I'll be like, here's another invoice. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So those are the
exactly.
kinds of things. Yeah, those are the kinds of business moves in photography and videography that people need to kind of be looking at. How can I make, additional money from this client or from this gig, without obviously ripping someone off. But there's ways to do it, and you just have to think it out and not just, a lot of times I just did it actually earlier today. Client reached out to me. They want me to shoot something on December 5th. I always say, what's in your budget? What do you have for this? Because some people will blow you away with the number, and other people will be like, well, I have $100 and for 5 hours worth of work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's really not me. But some people come back, go, I got $1,700 for 3 hours. And, you got to react, fine, no problem. I think I can work with that. Even though it's beyond the rate that you would probably normally give them. Yeah. So, you got to give I think from the business side, you got to give the client the opportunity to surprise you sometimes.
I don't think anyone in the history of freelancing has ever said, oh, that's far too much. Please only pay me half that. That's all I'm worth. No, like, of course I'll take whatever you're paying to pay me.
Yeah, so you start with a rate, you start with what your rate is. And then if they want to see your rate, you give it to them. But it works so much better when you just go, they see your work, they know that, you've done a lot of good stuff, and they know you're not probably going to be cheap. So let them give you the rate. And if it's way below your asking price, sometimes you got to punt on those jobs,
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from anyone with regard to, business and trying to make it as a freelancer is take whatever you think your appropriate rate is and like triple it and throw that to the client, and you'd be surprised that you might get some traction on that. But anyways, gents, we've come over the hour of wonderful chatting, but we do need to kind of close out the show. So let's go ahead and go around the room and just kind of, throw people where they can find more about you. Dominic.
Yeah, you can find me on my website, DominicGwinn.com. Gwinn is my last name. I also have a Substack. You can find that at smokeeater.news. Or you can find me on various social media platforms, just Dominic Gwinn. It's super easy to find me. I try to keep it simple for everybody.
Wonderful. And Dominic, send me the link to that content just so I can share it with our group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our post, and then you can send me a copyright infringement letter and sue me. Mark.
Yeah, so my website is markdoylephoto.com. So it's DOYLE, Mark with a K, photo.com. My YouTube page is Photos by Doyle. So if you search out Photos by Doyle, you'll find my YouTube page. And on my YouTube page, there's two separate links. One is for still photography, that I create a bunch of different slideshows for my work. The other link is for my videos, a lot of my drone work that I've been doing, plus the trailer to Burner is on there. So you can check that out if you want to see the trailer to the pilot episode of Burner. It's right there on Photos by Doyle on my YouTube page.
Oh, the whole episode is out?
Just the trailer. It's actually
Oh, okay.
also there's actually a video link that's also what I call motion. Some people call video, like we call it motion. There's a motion link on my website on markdoylephoto.com that shows a lot of my video work that I've been doing, but also the YouTube page kind of shows most of that stuff as well. So you could see
Yeah,
it
because I was
either.
gonna say you can't publicly really release the video until after Sundance or after your festival run.
Yeah, but the music videos that are tied to the songs that are tied to the pilot actually are on the YouTube page as well, so people could see at least some of the music that we've been doing, the original music and the videos that are associated with those songs.
Wonderful. All right, Zach.
As always, ZD Roberts everywhere on social media, and my newsletter is visu.news, visu.news.
Wonderful. And of course, you can always find me at aroundthelens.com. I'll be putting a bunch of stuff on there all the time. We just recently wrote a little write-up about one of our panelists who was on the show, who we have coming up on a future episode. He did a kind of like a little mini documentary for another channel, Rick Friedman. So I put a link on there to his documentary. It's on YouTube, so you can go check that out. But anyways, that's it for our show this week. For Zach, Mark, and Dominic, I'm David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, Roundtable Discussions, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.